Hello and welcome back to Cooking the Books with me, Gilly Smith, the podcast which digs just a little deeper into the minds behind the best of the food books through 4 food moments. And this week I'm with the woman who made Cooking the Books happen in the first place. No, really. When Melissa Hemsley said yes to my invitation to be on a brand new indie podcast over 2 years ago, before we'd even met, the rest of the A-listers flooded in. And that's because she's not just the best-selling green queen, but one of the most generous, genuine and well-respected members of the food community.
I care even more about my cookbooks. I care even more about my Instagram, my newsletter. And during lockdown, thinking about purpose, I just thought what I can do is support Olio. What I can do is support the Felix Project. What I can do is bake for the breast cancer department for Future Dreams.
Her latest cookbook, Feel Good, 100 quick and easy recipes to bring a bit of comfort and joy into our kitchens and beyond, is, I think, what makes her so compelling as a read, both in her books and on her social media. But I began by asking her what she intended it to be.
Gilly, I was just having a shower and thinking about you, and I am so rubbish at summing stuff up. If you can help me summarise it, I'm going to steal whatever you say and use it in all future podcasts and interviews. What is Feel Good? I mean, that is a huge question, isn't it? I think what I kept coming back to is it's unique to you. It's whatever suits you, whatever makes you feel best, whether that's sinking into the sofa with the most comforting bowl of dal and topped with a pickly, crunchy salad, or it's on a happier, more energetic day, maybe doing a double batch of something and freezing it as a little investment to your future self. Sometimes it's the simplest thing, and at the last second you go, do you know what? I have got energy for that 1 minute frizzly dizzly flourish on top of my scrambled eggs. I'm taking my basic scrambled eggs into something else. It is all those things. Sometimes it's a can of beans and a little bit of leek fried together in 5 minutes, and then like a fingernail's worth, that's not a very nice way of describing it, but like a fingernail's worth of parmesan, that bit right at the end, grated on, and a bit of lovely frozen sourdough, the last heel of the bread that you froze 6 months ago, and that's your dinner, and that's complete Feel Good, and that's actually what I might have for lunch.
I'm constantly following your lunches, by the way, on Instagram. Very, very, very often I think, shall I have a lunch? And I'll just check what Melissa's having. I'll have that. That's a very good idea.
Do you know what you can do? Look at the hashtag laptop free lunches, although I have been a little bit slack at updating it, because I do think it's important for us to step away from our phones and
definitely
laptops. And
so, I mean, going back to that kind of essential sell of the book. So what did you say to your publishers, for example? What did you say that you wanted to do with it?
Can never sum things up. The strapline on the book says quick and easy recipes for comfort and joy, which I love. That took us about 2 weeks to try and distill. But I'm always so envious of other authors. They're just so good at saying what the sell is. Eat Green came out January, and then we had the pandemic in March, or it kicked off in first lockdown in March. So I was already tinkering at what is now Feel Good. And I mean, the publishers, Ebury, Sarah Benny, you know them so well. They're so kind to me and generous and unrushy. I just tinker. And it's rare that I know what it's going to be called or how to sum it up. But what I kept exploring, even pre-lockdown, was community and connection, which we always talk about, you and I, because it comes back to Food Foundation, the Felix Project charity, giving young people, amplifying their voices, us chefs having a responsibility not just to churn out great recipes, but to help show people how to waste less and save money and use less electricity and gas. It's obviously never been more important.
Exactly. I think that that's what Feel Good is all about. And it's interesting where you put the emphasis. Is it feel good? Is it a directive? Or is it feel good food? I think there's a purpose behind what you do. And the way I read it, it felt very much a mental health book, a positive mental health book. And it's a kind of and your Instagram posts are all about how anxiety-inducing modern life can be, and how food is integral in that, and the way that you cook, the way that you consciously cook to avoid waste, the waste hacks that you give, the surplus food, where that goes to with the Felix Project, helping underprivileged kids to cook with, the Princess Trust charity that you're involved with.
That's it.
All the things that you do are a nod to how tricky life is. And this is a sort of a Mary Poppins bag of all the wonderful things that you reach into
that,
and
Gilly.
you pull them out again and again and again. And there are so many that just make you feel good.
And your feel good might be different from mine. I bet we're going to cross over so much, but you will have things because it will be your life experience, your childhood memories, your little things that your mum or dad did for you.
Let's just talk a little about anxiety and mental health. You do refer to it a lot. We've just come out of lockdown. The last time we saw each other, in fact, you were the last person I saw before I locked myself away.
Yes. We were at Katie's Caldesi in Marylebone, weren't we?
Exactly, La Cucina Caldesi, and we were doing a piece with you on waste.
Yes.
A piece for How to Eat to Save the Planet. And it was brilliant, and your waste hacks are always amazing. And you cooked a frittata then, and that is one of your food moments.
Yes.
But, what lockdown did really kind of bring up was how many people are just suffering from low-level anxiety that just went completely over the top. Food helps to calm people. Can we what's the Melissa Hemsley take on that? What have you been watching? What have you been talking to people about? What's your take on mental health?
I imagine, like lots of us, have had a roller coaster, not just day by day, hour by hour, week by week. Something in my body always catches whenever someone says, like you just did, we're out of lockdown now, because I sort of don't feel it yet. I still feel nervous travelling into town. I still feel, to be honest, a little bit overwhelmed with big groups. I'm going on a book tour shortly.
I know.
And I can't wait. And actually it's lovely because quite a few people have said, I'll see you there, and I can recognise faces from previous book tours. So that's really lovely. And I know I'll love it when I'm there. And then I know I'll get home off the train and I'll be buzzing, won't be able to sleep. But little things that seemed easier then, day-to-day work, shopping, putting together a meal, tackling life admin, all I feel feels a bit harder for me now. So what do I do differently? I walk twice as much as I used to. I loved walking anyway. You and I have our dogs and our dog walks, and actually I was looking at our WhatsApps. I've got pictures that you've sent me from a sunset beach, you and I are quite similar like that. And I'm sure lots of us are, in that what might have thrilled me before is now completely soothed by being out in nature. I feel that I plan my day differently now, and I understand that I'm in a privileged position that I can control my hours somewhat. I think that because I know I've got a 2-month book tour coming up, that I'm being extra gentle to myself, a little bit before, a little bit after. I put meetings in the diary with myself for walks. I've been napping, Gilly. Do you ever nap?
I do. I love an afternoon nap. I feel so incredibly guilty that I don't do it very often.
No,
and I
we
set
mustn't.
an alarm so that, I can't have too much of it. But, oh, my goodness, what a joy.
Do you get grumpy and grouchy if you oversleep?
No, I just give myself such a hard time that it's not worth it.
No. Do you know what? Speaking of, you asked me, what have I been reading and consuming and watching? I believe we've talked about Kimberly Wilson before, How to Build a Healthy Brain.
Who I interviewed for Delicious, actually.
Oh, yes, of course she did. So I'd recommend listening to Gilly's podcast with Kimberly. She also has the Thinking Space book club. Kimberly's got so many resources. She reminded me that we shouldn't think of a nap as a treat or something we have to justify doing, like, oh, I've worked so hard, or have worked 10 days in a row, but that weekend I'm allowed a nap. It's something that our body needs and is positive for us in so many ways. So sometimes when I lie down, my mind's racing and I don't actually nod off, but that's okay too, just the lying down. I love a soup. I know you do too. I have been eating even more soups, albeit with some interesting toppings. It's got to have a crunchy
Yes.
topping or some oozy feta melting in.
My soups have been transformed by your crunchy toppings, I have to say. Don't say that too often to people.
Going back, you know me, I love to roll around all your questions throughout the whole podcast. Going back, I'm determined that my next book, if my publishers ever offer me another book deal, I'm just determined for it to be a soup cookbook.
I think you should, absolutely.
Soup and nothing but soup.
You do give away a lot of your recipes. I mean, every single day you come up with something. That's where I get the Mary Poppins analogy. Where do you get all these ideas from? You just must be thinking about them all the time.
From my veg box, from my local food shop. I get my Riverford box every Friday. I actually think that my doorbell may go with my Riverford veg box man. That's all right. I'll shout out the window to him and say hello. I've got an amazing refill shop on my high street. But I think that, while us authors would like to be able to sell books so that we can earn a living, it has never been more important to be giving free recipes because, of course, the cost of living, the availability of time and resources that people have to cook has gone down, stress levels for everybody. Here's me just banging on about how I feel. I feel that the community needs to pull together more than ever. Lockdown, hopefully, has reminded us how important and good it feels as a positive. It doesn't feel bad to support someone. And I think that when you've got a little bit more, sharing what you've got with someone that doesn't have that or needs a bit more help is saying it's our moral duty. Too preachy. I think it might be. What's a better way of being not a preacher? I just feel it's important.
And I tell my girls that happiness is a social movement. Sort yourself out and then get on and help the rest of the world.
I like that.
Happiness is a social movement.
I'll take that, Gilly.
And I think that going back to, the mantra of your book, I get purpose. I think that, I don't know if you listened to the episode recently with Kitty and Al Tate, the Orange Bakery.
Yes.
Now, it's such a wonderful story. There was a 14-year-old girl with crippling anxiety, and she said that she didn't feel that there was any point to her life, and baking gave it purpose. And I think that, that's a really sort of dark edge to what we're talking about. But I think a lot of people feel purposeless.
We all have that dark edge to varying degrees and at various times. And that's why, actually, it's so important. There's some things I've shared on social media that I've gone through the last 2 or 3 years. There's some things I haven't shared. And the reason I haven't shared them is manyfold. For one, if I shared certain things, it would open up a conversation. I don't feel I have the right skills or the energy to respond appropriately. But I'm certainly seeking out that type of information and content myself because it is helpful to me. So I feel that I feel like I take my job even more seriously than I did before, if that makes sense. I care even more about my cookbooks. I care even more about my Instagram, my newsletter. And during lockdown, thinking about purpose, I just thought what I can do is support Olio. What I can do is support the Felix Project. What I can do is bake for the breast cancer department for Future Dreams to say thank you for, So that you're right. Purpose is...
It is very important. Let's put some picture around that through your food moments. Chocolate pots. Actually,
let's get chocolate pots.
Let's get chocolate pots. It's really important to treat yourself.
I'm going to quote back Kimberly Wilson again. This idea of, it's just delicious. And actually, my friends are coming over tomorrow and I've got some hazelnut milk and I'm making the chocolate pot. So it's 3 ingredients. It's dates. Preferably Zaytun dates because they are just an incredible Palestinian fair trade brand, small batch brand. Dates, hazelnut milk or whatever milk, full fat, dairy, whatever, yum, all the milks. And great chocolate, fair trade chocolate, hopefully. And with a little sprinkle of sea salt, and you blitz it all up together. I've told you the whole recipe, you don't need to buy the book. And then the important thing is you top it with whatever you want to top it with. So, it's pretty freezing cold today. I maybe some roasted with a little bit of brandy, some boozy fruit on top, or maybe some summer berries. Maybe I'll get some blackberries from Epping Forest when the time comes. So I love that. But it's that little sprinkle of sea salt, maybe a little bit of lovely olive oil as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so easy, Gilly, that recipe. My God, I'm not a big sweet person. I'm not a great skill wise, and I don't love sweets. I love chocolate though.
Yeah. And it is very much, curl up on the sofa with Nelly the dog, put the fire on and just give yourself some time out, isn't it? You talk about that in the book. You talk about your kitchen as being the place where you can really find peace and calm. You're constantly sort of having to create. There must be some kind of pressure on you to constantly pull stuff out of your Mary Poppins bag. But you say that that's the place where, and I've seen you in that kitchen, and it is beautiful, and to see you in it, you are absolutely at home in it. Tell me about that kind of that double-edged sword of calm and pressure.
Calm and pressure. Oh, I struggle with it. I really struggle with it. I don't feel pressured to deliver the recipes because I cook 3 times a day, or I eat 3 times a day, let's say. So I'm cooking what I'm eating. And then because I love to not waste food and don't waste money, then everything's rolling over into the next one. So it's just, what have I got to use up? So that's why often it will be a fritter, or freestyle fritter on a Friday, or a fridge raid frittata. What I do feel pressure is to then remember to share it. So, I was actually getting a bit peed off with myself because, this morning I wanted to do a meditation, and I'm not strong-willed enough, or surrendery enough rather, because it's about surrendering meditation, isn't it? To meditate without any aid. So I had to go to my phone to get on the app to meditate. And as soon as I touched my phone, in terms of the double-edged sword of calm and pressure, my blood pressure went up. Because your body sometimes struggles with what's stress and excitement. And if you love your job, which I do on the most part, it's just too tempting to not do the meditation app and suddenly respond to something, whether it's a job coming in, or it's a book tour date, or it's someone saying, I love your recipe and I want to say thank you so much for trying it. And which option did you do? But so I'd struggle with remembering to share, because I do love it so much that I want to share. And when I said there's almost everything, what I love about my job is almost everything, the bits that I don't like is how much it involves having to be online, which, let's be honest, is my choice. So that I don't need to pull out the violin for myself.
Yeah.
But
you do have a lot of people asking for connection with you. They feel very part of your world, and you can't just ignore them, and you wouldn't, and you don't.
No. I thrive off it.
Hell of a lot. Yeah, but it must take you a hell of a lot of time. I mean, how do you, I mean, there's lots of people playing with Instagram at the moment, of course. How do you put down the boundaries around your time?
Do
you turn your phone off?
Yes. And I've seen therapists on and off since I was about 16, 17. And I started again about 3.5 years ago, weekly, because I was ready to process my father's death, which had been 3 years before that. So I sort of shut down and didn't really want to deal with it. And actually, in terms of the mental health conversation, I have to give always a huge thank you to Bryony Gordon, because about 3.5 years ago, she invited me onto her podcast, Mad Girl. And we ended up talking about grief. I told her that Henry and I, my boyfriend, had bonded on our first date, which was a Tinder date at the amazing Canton Arms in Stockwell, the best pub ever. And we bonded over what we called, and I was a bit worried afterwards that it had been a flippant statement and I'd get into trouble. We called it the Dead Dads Club, because Henry...
I knew you would.
I know. Henry very sadly lost his father, then I lost my father, and, I called it the Dead Dads Club, and then I said it on the podcast, and I thought, oh my God, my mum will kill me. People will find it so flippant, but I mean it with love in my heart. We bonded because we could talk about the fact that our fathers had passed and the impact it had had on us. And anyway, so I felt freer when I worried about I had given too much away. But then I felt freer after doing that podcast, and people still message me now, and that's now 3.5 years ago, saying they heard it and it helped them. But that really helped me realise that I can share a recipe on Instagram, let's say, or on TV, and in it, I can use that opportunity to talk about mental health. I can also use it as an opportunity to talk about the fantastic farmer that made an ingredient in that recipe, whether it's a fair trade chocolate brand, whether it's a family-run small holding, whether it's the fact that it's got Jersey Royals and we've got to grab them because it's such a short season, and why they're so important, or why asparagus grown in the UK is important to eat. You know, and actually, if you give a recipe and tell people that things and weave it through, it is more, well, I'm coming back to the word preachy. I hope not preachy, more palatable to show a food waste recipe that's absolutely delicious and eye-catching, and promise that it's delicious, and then the bonus is it stops food waste. I think I've learnt that over the last 10 years. Maybe I got myself into a bit of trouble earlier on, where I felt where if you don't explain things enough and just put a picture out, it can seem unachievable or not for everyone. And now I think I spend a lot more time writing to be useful and helpful. Yeah. I hope.
Yeah, well, that certainly comes out over that way. Your second food moment is very much like that. The farinata, what the crispy golden bites. Tell us about that one.
I'm actually making some later with anchovies in it. I love gram flour, chickpea flour. Also, I actually oiled my hair yesterday because I'm growing it for the Little Princess Trust, so I can lob off 7 inches and donate it. If anyone who has got long hair over lockdown wants to also join me, then the Little Princess Trust, they take your hair and turn it into wigs for young people. Yeah. They need at least 7 inches. I'll just throw that out there. Anyway, so I oiled my hair because it was looking a little bit dry. And then I realised that I would then struggle to wash out the oil, use sesame oil. And I remembered that chickpea flour sprinkled into your hair is really good for then washing your hair. Yeah. Anyway, that's back to food. Chickpea flour, gram flour is so delicious and affordable and easy to get, whether it's from your local shop or your big shops. And it's very easy to use for things like frittatas or egg replacements. And I wanted to make something that just had tons of flavour bombs, you know, from your olives and your capers and your onion and your anchovies. Good cupboard ingredients. Expensive though. So the chickpea flour is relatively cheap. The olives and so on are a little bit more expensive. But together you can create a snack or, you know, the base of a delicious lunch or meal that's so easy to make. You can customise it. You can throw on sun-dried tomatoes if you want. You can throw in your leftover roasted carrots if you want. It's just this amazing baking tray's worth of goodness. And I love it. And it's delicious hot or cold.
Yeah. And as we talked about at La Cucina Caldesi back before lockdown, you know, it is really about learning very, very basic skills, isn't it? And then just going into the back of the fridge and pulling it all out and knowing that it's going to be fine and not making it too fussy and just masses of flavours, just never throwing stuff away. Your third food moment is about always having a block of feta in the fridge and you making your fritters. I mean, your frittatas and your fritters, you know,
maybe that's my next book. Fritters and frittatas, brackets and soup. You heard it here first. I'm going to go and write the proposal now.
There are endless ways of making frittatas and fritters for you. Tell us about the courgette feta fritters. Oh my, I'm going to have to do this one for lunch.
Oh, it's also fantastic for carrots. You know, when we're out of season with courgettes, it's just, well, obviously I know all of us like to cook seasonally as much as possible, but also a watery courgette is never inspiring, is it? So this is also good with lovely carrots. Well, it's so funny. I struggle whenever we do this with the food moments. I love that you do it, but I struggle, as you know, to be succinct and drill down into things. So I thought about, if you were with me today, we probably would have put feta somewhere. So it's a cold day. It's a cold summery day, but it should be a warm summery day. So I thought, again, a bit like I just said for the farinata, what's delicious and makes me feel good at any temp? Because the pressure's off. What I haven't mentioned yet that I also feel good is about not just purpose, not just uniqueness, what just suits us, is I am determined. I said to myself, as somebody that gets frazzled easily, quickly and heightenedly, and then struggles to come back down to earth, I promised myself to stop. I was like, do not invite people around unless you enjoy cooking the meal and hosting, because nobody wants to go and eat at someone's house when they're stressed. It's not a great energy to have around food. Hope no one rolls their eyes at that, but I truly believe, that's why it's so important to have a happy, amazing culture in a kitchen, in restaurants, because and people growing your food. I promised myself to stop cooking or saying, just pop round, I'll just whip something up, unless I could really do it. So there's a whole chapter called Stress-Free Sharing, and that's where the courgette and feta fritters are. Really easy. You can do them in advance. They're delicious, hot or cold. Everything's better with feta or fettle. You can get UK grown fettle, but I also just absolutely love Greece and haven't been in a million years, and it's a taste of sunshine.
Your fourth food moment is all about your mum. And I've said to you in the past that I am one day getting your mum on my podcast, because she is the kind of the beating heart of you and Jasmine, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
She is a feeder, and so are you two. Your fourth food moment, though, is her Filipino chicken and mango tomato salsa.
Yes.
A hash up of all your favourite Filipino flavours. I mean, how much did you eat in terms of Filipino flavours when you were growing up?
Well, at the time, I didn't know what was Filipino or not. I mean, I genuinely sometimes would think that was English, let's say. I would say the smell of ginger was a sort of permeating smell of my childhood. The reason why I call it a hash up of Filipino flavours is because I haven't quite tasted a chicken dish like this, but it's got lots of the things I love in it. So there's also a fantastic option for a mushroom version, for plant-based eaters or people that just want to eat more mushrooms, which I do. I love my mushrooms. It's got star anise, it's got garlic. You can add ginger to it as well. Although when I was going through my book, I was like, there's ginger in a lot of this. So I took out the ginger, and it didn't need the ginger, but it is awesome with ginger too. Yeah, tons of garlic, star anise, soy or tamari. And then I was marinating it at some point in the recipe development. And then one day I just thought, I don't have time to marinate it. I need to eat my dinner, but I have to recipe test my recipe. And I did it without marinating, and it was just awesome. So it's this flavour-packed little mix that you can stir through your chicken, you can put on your fish, you can toss through your mushrooms, you can just drizzle it all over your leftover egg fried rice and whatever veg you've got in the bottom. It's just an awesome, like a little Filipino blast of flavours. And my mum, if I have people around, I generally tend to cook with a Filipino flavour, because I feel that a lot of my friends just love it, and it's a little bit different to what they would usually eat. And I didn't see my mum that much over lockdown. She was in her home and we were in ours, and she was an absolute legend at helping me recipe test remotely. She recipe tested almost every recipe, and it was nice because I then knew that my mum was really looking after herself and cooking a nice meal.
It's also about grounding, isn't it? Going back to that kind of treating yourself. What is feel-good food? How do you feel good about food? It's about bringing everything that you are to it. So that might be, your commitment to zero waste. It might be your commitment to real conscious compassion in terms of high welfare meat, for example.
Yes.
But it's also about bringing the upbringing into your home. So it feels to me, you always use your mum's recipes or your mum's inspiration, and it feels like it really gives you a flavour. I know that Jasmine does it too.
She does,
It is so important, isn't it? How do you bring yourself to your food? Can everybody bring their food memories to their own tables?
It 100% does, and that is an amazing question, Gilly. I also would apply that question. Let me go all therapy talk on you. I would bring that, because you just really inspiring me actually with this conversation. The word purpose keeps woven through. It's never been more important to show up as our true selves, because with varying degrees, we were hit in the face with what does actually make me feel good, and what's been taken away from me that made me feel so good and I can't have, and what can I hardly wait to do when I'm allowed to that makes me feel good, or what have I missed about that person, or what's been missing from my life. And if we apply it to food, I so missed eating at restaurants, but I also loved connecting and thinking about how to inspire and entertain myself throughout the week. And one of the things I did was, and actually this is where the name of the book came from, I did this Instagram live series called the Feel Good Sessions. And, you know, thinking about my mum's influence on me, it didn't start out like this, but what ended up happening was everybody started to talk about their mum or their friend at school's mum or dad or granny who used to put something in their lunchbox, or a teacher, or a meal, or a holiday they had as a kid. And it just kept coming up. It was memories of food that then influenced either the brand of, I don't know, ketchup they'd ever had, or the vinegar that they would only ever eat that vinegar, or why they called their restaurant that name, or why that cookbook is dedicated to that person. And it all has come from influence. And I think what's so interesting, and maybe because I didn't study food, or I wasn't trained, not that I'm saying this particularly matters, but I've really felt my way through my food and cooking, and I have felt no rules with food, and I constantly will mix a taste of this with a spice of that. And I, you know, like, for example, the book, The Flavour Thesaurus, one of the best books ever, shows you that really you can't go wrong. I mean, I'm sort of summarizing up that book. There's better
vast
book. There's better combinations, and there's fascinating combinations. But I think that one of the amazing things about food, it not being just fuel, not just being a chance to use our spending power to vote for the world we want through our shopping, it's also a chance to really tap into what makes us feel good. It's a chance to experience so many people's cultures and absorb things and borrow and admire and appreciate other people's ways of cooking and larders and cupboards, and bring it into your own. And I hope my recipes will always inspire people, but then them go free and freestyle however they want on top. That's the Instagram messages I will never not be able to go to bed to. If someone says, I made this of yours, Melissa, but then I did this, that's like, for me. I feel that's my purpose. I'll go to bed happy that night.
Thanks for listening. You can read the transcripts to the show now at gillysmith.com. Just click on podcasts. Please get in touch on social media. I'm at Cooking the Books with Gilly Smith on Instagram, where you can follow my adventures in cookery as I spend the next 6 months at Leith's Online. And you can check the show notes and on Instagram for full details, and to follow the links to get Cooking the Books discounts on Leith's cookery courses. And I'll see you next week.